So, yeah, hold on. I love how it says that there. I was making a video like right before I did this one, and God said to stop for a good reason, because I was kind of riled up about like some things. I something a lot of people don't know, and it's funny. I'll start with this first. Is that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. You're a soul that has a body. You're not a body with a soul. You know what I mean? You hear people talking about like, oh, I have a soul. No, you don't. You are the soul. You have a body. And then given that knowledge, you also realize that everything is energy. Even science says this. Everything is energy, pure consciousness. You know what I mean? And because of that, and also because all is one and one is all, that's how stuff like telepathy and whatever else, being an empath, how all that is possible. And, for the general masses, they hear something like that and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you crazy? Because they're not aware of these things. And there's a reason for that. It's like the devil, that old saying, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled off was convincing the world that he's not real. You know what I mean? It's the same concept, but with all that. And anyways, your thoughts are not private as you think. And it's almost like, hold on, what time is it? Sorry, I'm still on my lunch break, so I'm just checking my time, how much time I have left. Everything is energy. That includes thoughts. So if you're sensitive to energy, and especially if you're extremely empathic, if you're extremely empathic, it's almost like telepathy, because you're picking up on that person's energy and how they're feeling. And it can get to a point to where like you could basically hear someone's thoughts. Anyways, and I say that because the enemy, how do I say this? There's always spirits around, you know what I mean? Just because you can't see it, or even if you're adept at sensing stuff, that doesn't mean you're gonna sense like every spirit that's hanging around. You know what I mean? You got some spirits that have like some strong energy, whether they be good or bad, you know what I mean? But then you got some spirits that don't really have much of an energy signature, and you might not even notice. Anyways, I say all that because let's say the enemy has sent some of his little henchmen to keep an eye out on you. They can pick up on your thoughts. You know what I mean? Like in the movies when someone's possessed, and then you got that demon reading everyone's mind and shit, or whatever. It's like the same concept, but like the spirit, that demon is just like hanging around, like listening to your thoughts and shit. And yeah, don't let that scare you though, because just don't focus too much on that. But yeah, just watch out for your thoughts, man. There are ways, like through meditation, to create those like barriers around your mind. And you know what? Speaking of that, spiritual warfare, a lot of it is a mind game. When it comes to the demonic, and especially magic, a lot of it has to do with this. because your mind is your ultimate tool, and that's how magic is actually used. Now, a lot of the times when magic is, portrayed, people are doing rituals, using tools, whatever. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get away from using the tools. The tools are training wheels. The end goal is to be able to just use this, because energy in its purest form, or magic in its purest form, is energy manipulation by force of will. You know what I mean? And like, and giving that, like, it's basically what everyone does on a regular basis, just they don't realize it because no one explains this stuff. And your thoughts have power. You know what I mean? Your will to make something happen, you know what I mean? It's like, that's how manifestation works also, you know what I mean? Like, I'll make another video about it if I remember. But yeah, it's crazy, like, when you think about all this stuff. But yeah, spiritual warfare, and it's something you gotta like pay attention to on a regular basis. And the world would make you feel crazy about it, because a lot of people don't even realize what's going on. A lot of people, the general masses, don't even realize what the hell's going on in the physical. So if you're highly spiritual and you're not around a lot of spiritual people, spiritual sensitive people, and like a lot of people you're around don't have gifts, don't let the normies like get to you. You know what I mean? They don't know what they don't know. And a lot of the times, they're not going to believe it until they see it with their own eyes or experience it. You know what I mean? And yeah, but I say all this just to, give a heads up as to like some of the tactics and like how some stuff actually, works in life, and why like sometimes when you think about something, it's not necessarily because you manifested it. Sometimes it's the enemy or someone else listening to you in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? Because like, you've heard of monitoring spirits, and that's a thing. You know what I mean? That's basically what I'm talking about. I just couldn't think of the term for it. Now, monitoring spirits, there isn't always a manifestation of like flies, because a lot on TikTok, and some other places on social media, I was seeing, people talking about, oh, you have flies hanging around you? Be careful, monitoring spirits. And that's partially true, but that's not always the case. And there doesn't always need to be flies to have a monitoring spirit around you. So, yeah, that's another thing. But meditation and a relationship with God are key. Your mind is the ultimate tool. You know what I mean? If the enemy could fuck with your mind, then it's game over. But the more you meditate, the more you practice, the more you could guard your mind, and the more like you could strengthen it, because it's like a muscle. You know what I mean? It's like, when you work out, you know what I mean? You're building muscle, you're strengthening your muscle. When you're doing strength training, you're making your muscle stronger so you can lift more, or whatever it is you're trying to do, gain endurance. It's the same thing with the mind and the spirit. You got to exercise your mind and your spirit on top of your body, because if you let one lack, especially your mind, like, it's going to be a major weak point, major chink in your armor. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want that. And that's actually how a lot of people are so easily manipulated by the enemy, especially when you're ruled by ego, and like, I don't know if you've ever seen like scary movies, but like when sometimes a demon will like possess someone briefly, and that person will have no recollection of what the demon did with their body during that little time frame that the demon was using it, and then they snap out of it and they're like, oh, what happened? And they're like, you just did this, and they're like, oh no, I didn't. it This is going to sound corny, but one of the perfect examples of this happening, and this is why a lot of the time spiritual people will talk about like this world being like the Matrix. They'll call it the Matrix. It's because it kind of works like that. Like the movie The Matrix. You know how like freaking the agents could body jump, basically take over bodies to like the people who are still jacked into the system can be overridden by the agents and used by the agents. And it's the same way with people here in real life, but instead of agents, you could call them agents, you know, but really it's just a spirit. It's a demon, you know what I mean? And for a lot of you Christians out there, I'm a Christian myself. I'm not an Orthodox Christian. I have seen way too much, experienced way too much to believe what mainstream Christianity believes, you know. And there's stuff that's not in the Bible that happens in real life, just so you know. But yeah, not everything is a demon, so just a heads up. Yeah, but you know, there's a lot of spirits, a lot of demons, but you know, just stay guarded and always go to God first. You know what I mean? Because even if you're spiritually adept, like, you can still get duped. That's just how life is. You know what I mean? But with that being said, God bless, glory to God. Hope this helped in some way. Bye.